Hey guys, Brandon here. Market update time? No, it's insiders update time. So that's what we're going to do here. We've got some stuff going on today. We've got 3 pages of notes, so we're not going to nix some stuff. So it's not going to be quite that long. But what I want to do is I really want to start bringing some more pointed, deep content to, everyone that we can reach. And we've been doing this for a little while, but it's really just been for people that we knew. They were just subscribed to our newsletter or whatever it may be, and we really want to reach more people. I don't know if this will be something that we have out forever and we make it public forever, but it's something I want to do for a little bit here and there, and to try to reach more people and hopefully get some word out. I spend a lot of time. My team spends a lot of time every single month. Digging up content, reading articles, newsletters, subscribing to newsletters, from guys like this and guys like this that, give us information that you just don't see on the TV every day. It's not in the media, it's not in the newspaper, it's not on most blogs, on the internet. It's, these are guys that are true, economic historians and, currency and gold and silver and real estate business. So it's something, it's a passion of mine. The people in the Legacy Group, our team here, we have a team of people that love this kind of stuff as well. And we did a video yesterday on the people you surround yourself with. I think it's really important to know the past, and guys like this, knowing the past, knowing what currency is and what money is, and knowing the difference between those two things. The guys like this who. One of my, he's probably my all-time mentor just in the financial world, in real estate and in business world, knowing the difference between an asset and a liability. It's just, there's other things we're taught in school, and it's something that I spend countless hours every single month studying these guys, and guys like them, and it's something I really want to give back to you. The insiders updates that we've been doing, they weren't up to par. They weren't good enough for me, and they just need to be a lot better, a whole heck of a lot better. So this is kind of the start of that. This is obviously it's a crazy time right now, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the holidays and family. But this is something that I put together. It's only 3 pages of notes, so that's it. So in the future, they might be even a little bit longer. Because there's so much to go through, and I think that when you study the past, you can see the future, and everyone's kind of heard that before, but it's so true, especially with the economy and money and things like that. So we have our market update that we do once a month, and that's more of the micro level, and we want to be macro level and with our insiders update. And like I said, this takes a ton of time to put together, and it's going to take even more time to put together in the future. So I don't know if it's going to be available to the public forever. It could be for the next 5 years, but eventually it could be something where it's just subscribers, and we're doing something like that. So who knows? But I'm excited to get feedback from everyone I know to see what they think, because it's just something for a long time I've thought about. Gosh, how can I get the information I have in front of more people? And really, I just didn't package it up enough and put it together. And I talked to a lot of people about it. People that know me or know me well or whatever, they know that I'm into this kind of thing. And it's fun, and it's fun to be in the real estate world because we're dealing with stuff like this all the time. It affects us. Things like the interest rate, they just raised that obviously this month, a quarter point, and they did it a year ago, right? So that was only 2 times in the last 10 years, in the last decade, they've done that. So why is that? Why did they do that? You have guys like this who, Jim Rickers, Richard Duncan, these guys are, Jim Rickers was one of the first guys, actually he was the first guy, to war game a financial meltdown in America and in the world with the Pentagon. So that's your guy right here. I've got one of his books right here, actually. His most recent one. That's a fun one, The Road to Ruin. So, and again, these videos aren't going to be meant to scare people. Knowledge is power, but action is really what helps you, obviously. But knowing still helps too, right? So this guy, right here, I think it says in the first page or two, it talks about him being the only person to ever war game that and war game a financial meltdown in the United States of America. So it's something that's real. This has been going on. I mean, he even has in his book too. I was just going through it again earlier. 98, 08, 2018. Those are some of the big points. I'm guessing you can probably see the correlation and where that's going. But it's Jim Rickards is unbelievable. He's got a handful of different books. I'm going to put the books in some different stuff, and all these guys have, like he has a newsletter, he has, some books too, but these guys all have books for the most part, and they're awesome reads. Like Muhammad Al-Arian, unbelievable guy. He's an Egyptian businessman, but he has, right here, I've got a whole page on him basically, and I just heard him talk the other day, and he wrote The Only Game in Town. It's all about the Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and it's all the central banks of the world, and in really kind of going over Brexit and some different things that have gone on in the world lately, and how the central banks are the ones really controlling everything. They're the ones really controlling everything. Everything we do, they're the ones controlling that. A lot of people think that the President of the United States, Barack Obama, or President-elect Donald Trump is the most powerful man in the world, but he's not. The central banks are. So that's the central banks are the most powerful people in the world. And there's a quick fact: they are not private, or entities. They're not owned by. I'm sorry, they are. They aren't owned by the U.S. Federal Reserve, for example, is actually have private stockholders. They're basically owned by the banks, and we're led to believe, and we were taught our whole lives that they were, they're for us. They're the U.S. Federal Reserve, and they're there to protect us. And yeah, it's really, it's a different game. It's a shell game, really. And again, this is not meant to scare people, but it's meant to enlighten and really help people see a different side of things. Because for one, I think one of the big reasons that Donald Trump got elected this election is people are so sick of being lied to. And you can say what you want about Donald Trump, you can say what you want about Hillary Clinton, whatever, doesn't matter. But people are just sick of not having the truth. They're not sick. They're just sick of, the media putting the veil over them and, just telling them whatever they want. There's a report out that, I can't remember who was saying it the other day, but there was a report out, and it's not a report actually. We have the evidence, we have the text messages. It was like Barclays and UBS and a couple of different banks. They're all colluding together and shorting the silver price. So I know Mike Maloney talked a lot about it. He is an unbelievable. If anyone had followed my Snapchats recently in the last, I don't even know, it's probably like 4 or 5 months ago, I was talking about hidden secrets of money. This guy is unbelievable. If you want to learn about currency, the history of money, and the difference between those two things, this is your guy. He's unbelievable. goldandsilver.com, nothing in between there. He is unbelievable. Go watch his videos. They had to have cost so much to put together. Some of the best animation and production I think I've seen really in educational videos anywhere, in any industry. So he's awesome to learn from, and just incredible videos. I had a lot of people come back to me and just say, wow, like just eye-opening to them. And it really is captivating, the videos, honestly, and it's super easy. They make this stuff so hard. There's a couple of the episodes, there's like 7 episodes, and they're all like half an hour long. And there was one of the videos I probably watched it like 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 times, and I still don't get some of it. They're showing you how money flows from the Fed to the Treasury and to the government, and they're showing you, and it's so hard to comprehend because it's that, but you watch it a few times and you eventually get it. But they make it that way specifically to confuse people, and that way, all the jargon they use, you don't understand what's going on. You just kind of brush it aside and say, oh, okay, whatever. I don't get it, so who cares? Someone else will take care of it. That's what they want. That's the whole point. They don't want it to be. They want you to be able to say, oh, and hey, this is the employment rate was this, or the unemployment rate was this, and everyone just, hey, whatever. What they don't tell you is that they took, factors out of factoring in the unemployment rate. They took away half the stuff they used to calculate it with before. So when they say unemployment is 5%, well, if you really calculate it like we used to, say 20 or 30 years ago, it'd be 12, 13, 14, 15%. So, and that leads me to another thing really quick, is the Dow, which, we have very overvalued things right now, which is the stock market. right? So we have the stock market, it's almost at 20,000, record highs, and that can't last forever, and it's just what goes up must come down. It's simple as that. I mean, we have economic dips and depressions, or whatever you want to call them, recessions. We have them every 7 to 9 years, 7 to 10 years maybe, and we're in year 8, 9. So that's where a lot of these guys, like your Robert Kiyosaki, he said 2016 there was going to be a crash, and he said that because of the baby boomers. The first time the baby boomers started turning 70 and a half was this year. That's why he said it was going to start collapsing this year. Rickard said, he says 2018. Harry Dent says sometime in the next 4 years, before 2020. So that's, and Bert Doman kind of says the same thing as well. But that's where, just following people who know what's going on, and not just following people like this, who, if someone doesn't know who that is, Ben Bernanke used to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and he was, let's just call him, he's an academic, and the Federal Reserve, they run off of a lot of algorithms and computer models and things like that, and they tend to they subscribe to the Keynesian economic model, and what they fail to kind of realize and take into account is human nature and real life, unfortunately. And it's just funny. I got something right here. He said Bernanke wrote a paper in the 90s, which I will not read Ben Bernanke. Some of the stuff actually from Mike Maloney. He would read Ben Bernanke, and he just says it's the most terrible thing to read in the world. So I really don't even try with Ben Bernanke. But right here we have him saying that in the 90s, he was saying how Japan's been in crisis really for the last 30 years, and they've been struggling ever since then. And he just said how in the U.S. we would never have low growth or low interest rates like Japan, and that's exactly what we have now. So, and these kind of patterns just keep happening over and over and over again. And that's when you take a step back and you think, wow, what is going on? What are we doing as a country, as a world, but really as a country, what are we doing? How are we going about things? And, Mohammed Al-Arian talks about, some of that stuff in here. Talks about Europe and some of the different crises going on there. Obviously, you have Italy and Greece and a number of different countries that are looking like they could do a Brexit, and leave. And what would happen if that did happen? He thinks that it would hurt us more politically than it would economically. He thinks we'd still be fine. You have people with differing, opinions with that. But really his big thing, again, he writes about, in his book, The Only Game in Town, he writes about the central banks. And he really talks a lot about the Fed is out of bullets. And I mean, if there's one thing that's common between all these guys, well, really everyone in black, it's that they talk about the Fed being out of bullets. And, this guy used to run the Fed. He knows the Fed is out of bullets, but he thinks that they can manipulate things and print money and do different things that are going to, increase their ammunition supply, if you will. And really, they're out of bullets. I mean, you can only print so much money. We had quantitative easing, they called it, for, QE4, 3 or 4, whatever we're on now, or we're on. And they're trying to raise interest rates a little bit. We didn't raise rates for 10 years. We raised them once last year. They said they were going to raise them forever. Then they finally raised them in the first time in 9 years, 10 years, a quarter point, which is nothing. And then they raised it again this year after they said they're going to raise it 4 times. They raised it once in December, another quarter point. And honestly, I mean, I think, and I've seen a lot of people say that the one reason they are trying to raise interest rates is because they need somewhere to take them, which is down. They need somewhere to bring them when other things, kind of hit the fan. They need somewhere to take those interest rates. So they're trying to give themselves some leeway to drop it. On that topic, we have negative interest rates, which are awesome. Obviously, some places in the world, if people have heard of that going on in different places, we have negative interest rates where, again, Mohammed Al-Arian talks about it a lot. I just heard him talk the other day about it, and he talks about just being very aware of what's going on, obviously. And like I said before, these videos aren't meant to, the insider updates aren't meant to scare people. They're not meant to, do anything but try to educate and enlighten people, because I think that it's so important to be educated as to what's going on and to what's going on in the world around us, that It's being agile, like he says, being agile, being resilient to the things that are going on around you in this crazy time. I mean, how many things happened just this week? Stabbing, shootings, car bombs, things like that. You have to be prepared for anything. You've got to be prepared for economic crisis. You got to be prepared for physical events going on in the world around you. And Muhammad Al-Arian talks a lot about just being resilient and being aware of what you're doing. I mean, he talks about negative interest rates, and he's like, why would someone be saving as much money as possible and saving all their money or by getting bonds, and they have to pay to do that? I mean, think about that. There's places in the world that have negative interest rates. You're paying the bank to keep your money for you. So you put in $1 million, and then at the end of the year, you pay them $100,000. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. It just, and that's something that, will it come here? I have no idea. I mean, really, no one has any idea, but it's a possibility. That's instead of bailouts, there could be bail-ins. So negative interest rates. There could be, like in Cyprus, we had people, the government coming in, just scooping, people's bank accounts. Everyone above $100,000 or everyone above $250,000 in their bank account, just scooping the excess off the top, just taking all of it and saying, "Hey, sorry," And so those are things that, again, they're just to be aware of. Those things are going on in the world around us, and we just have to be very careful with what we're doing and just be aware of that. Again, just like he says like 3 times in the talk. I mean, just be resilient, be agile, and be aware of what's going on around you. It's so important. It's so important. He talked about OPEC, which I thought was interesting too. A really quick note on OPEC, but oil below 45 hurts the OPEC countries. Above 55, shale, that really starts coming into play. So there's like that sweet spot between 45 and 55. So we've kind of seen gas prices up and down a little bit in the last year or two. He did talk about the corporate tax. So he said if Trump does bring the corporate tax rate, then it could help a lot with business. There are conflicting views on that as well, though. I mean, people say that, well, if the money starts pouring back into America, then inflation could go up. So it's an interesting dichotomy, and that's why I think these videos are so important. I just spend so much time reading this stuff and going over it. Because I really feel that it's something that, as a real estate agent on a micro level, that's awesome, but as a business owner at the next level, you got to be aware of what's going on. And I think it's my duty to, help people around me and to help the people I work with, help my family. I think I have to be aware of these things so that way I can get the word out and people can get the word out. That's what these guys are all doing, and I stumbled on this guy 6 years ago, really, 9 years ago when the crash happened. That's where I really took an interest in money and the currency, business, all the 4 asset classes, business, real estate, commodities, and paper. And that's when I just really looked at stuff and I was like, wow. Then I found this guy 2 or 3 years later. I guess it was maybe 08, 09, the crash. And about 2 years in 2011, I found this guy. And this guy changed my life. He completely changed my life. The very first book I read of his, I found it in a grocery store in a grocery store, like a superstore, and it was like $3 in the bargain bin. I knew who Donald Trump was. He wrote a book, Why We Want You to Be Rich, with Donald Trump. And I knew who Donald Trump was. I always loved real estate, and I knew who Donald Trump was. I had no idea who he was, and I read the book, and it blew my mind. It just completely changed the course of my life and changed my life all around. Everything started to make sense. Your money working for you and working for different types of income and learning how the financial market works. And it just opened my world to, hey, why wasn't I taught this in school? And there were things I questioned in school a lot and questioned people at schools and professors and teachers, and no one had answers. And I just got the same answer. Well, hey, it doesn't matter. Or, hey, you'll learn in school, or you'll learn on the job. And I was like, well, what am I doing then? Why? So, this guy really changed my life to, and started me into personal development, and Jim Rohn also, but he's not as much of a financial guy. He's more of a personal development guy. But Jim Rohn, but Robert Kiyosaki really changed the course of my life forever. And I've read all of his books. He probably has dang near 20 books. and or 15, 10 to 20 books of his own, but then he has 15 to 20 books of his advisors that have books as well, and I've read all those, and his vocabulary is now stuck in my head. Like your assets pay for your liabilities, things like that, and I can't get him out of my head now, and I can never revert back to the old way because I've read it so many times. And my wife, Jessica, makes fun of me a ton because she's like, you read all of his books and you're reading that one again, and she hears stuff and she gets sick of hearing it. But it's, he says at the end of every one of his podcasts, actually, the Rich Dad Radio Show, repetition is how we learn, right? I mean, you're practicing. Whether you're a salesperson and you're calling people on the phone all day long, or you're an athlete, or whatever it is, you do music, well, you're practicing. You're doing your repetitions. You're getting it in, and it's becoming a habit. And that's exactly what I did. And now I have that language that he uses. I don't know all of it, but I have a lot of that language, and his mindset, I have a lot of that now because of this. And it's changed my life. So we're going to jump quick to some futurists. So these two guys are futurists. Ray Kurzweil, this guy works for Google. He has some amazing books. The Age of Intelligent Machines. Oh my gosh, I can't even think of them. But I have a couple of his books, and he writes one every few years, maybe every 5-10 years, kind of going through the next decade or two, or kind of predicting what will happen in the future. And he's very accurate, and the reason he's very accurate is because he's the one shaping a lot of the future. So he is one of the chief guy, I believe he's one of the chief futurists over at Google, and he's the one working on all these different projects. With our cell phones will become chips in our skin and things like that. Obviously the driverless car, which is pays past that now, but it's almost scary. It's very scary listening to some of the stuff that he talks about. But really quick, I put him in there though, just because of just knowledge. I mean, knowledge. He says the rate of knowledge is doubling every 2 years. He said that's just going to keep geometrically. It'll just keep progressing, and it'll be down to every year, every 6 months, every month. And then what happens? I mean, really, what happens when knowledge is increasing that fast? I mean, it's incredible. And think about where we were, 100 years ago, or 200 years ago. So now it doubles. Knowledge base doubles every 2 years. It's absolutely incredible. Martin Ford, this guy, his book's really good too. The Rise of Robots. He talks about just automation and what's going on in the world with robots and what we're going to see here in the future. And some of this stuff, I'm getting a little bit, it's not exactly all 2017. These guys are a little bit more like, hey, this is the next, year to 3 or 4 years. These guys are out there a little bit more. I mean, this is some, real, crazy stuff. I mean, automation with McDonald's. We got Martin Ford here says that McDonald's is replacing 40% of their 1.8 million workforce with robots or automation. So, people, and this is why you have to be so careful. You have to understand currency. And this is why I study it so much, because it fascinates me. But even if it doesn't fascinate you, you still have to be versed in it. You still have to kind of, know your way around it. And, people that they want, $15 an hour, work for working at McDonald's. It's not meant to be a career. It's not a career to work at McDonald's. And what's going to happen is guys like this, or guys like all these who are, most of them are all entrepreneurs. They say, okay, great. Well, this person now costs me, healthcare, sick days. Maybe they don't produce like they should all the time, and now they want to be paid $15 an hour or whatever it may be. Well, guess what? They're going to get automated. They're going to just pay something up front, invest in that money in the technology, and it's going to wipe everyone out. It's going to wipe that whole workforce out. I mean, so really what happens, you already have in Arizona, it's already happening. You already have, them doing kiosk with automation, making hamburgers and ordering and things like that. So, where does it go from there? Then what? Are we going to have laws that are saying you can't have automated, so it's going to be very interesting times. So the things that we just have to think about and be prepared for. But it's, think about that, 40%. And then think about One of the largest sectors of the workforce is truck drivers, or just drivers in general. Sorry, it's just really just drivers. And what happens when there's automation and there's just, it's Uber, in this automated cars, and driverless cars. What happens then? That whole sector of the workforce, what happens then? So these are the things that, again, our country has to really, think about, and our country really has to take a hard look at, because these things are coming, and it's, some of them might be a little bit longer than others, but they're coming, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens in the future, how things like driverless cars, driverless trucks affect the workforce, because that's a massive segment of the industry of the working population, and really in fast food, things like that. I mean, that's huge. I mean, you have automation, you have driverless cars and trucks. What happens to those people? And again, these are things to think about. They're not things to scare people. We had farmers. I can't remember the stat now, but we have farmers were the biggest, obviously, segment of the population or workforce. 100 years, I believe it was only 100 years ago, if not less, but definitely 100, 200 years ago. And we had pretty much whatever 50, 60, 70, 80% of the population, a large chunk of the population were farmers. Now it's down to like less than 1%, I believe. So you can see that, hey, we've got past that. We've progressed. We've got better with what we're doing, and there other opportunities have arisen. But those are just things to think about, and hopefully people can start envisioning, hey, how can we change this? How can we grow? So, doctors and lawyers. Geez, this is a crazy one. Accountants, doctors, lawyers. I'm sure real estate agents, whoever it is, people that have knowledge. I mean, they already have. I mean, get this. If you need 20 million pages read, you just need to be super smart. Well, the robot can do that. They're going to read 20 million pages in, I don't know what, an hour, a day, or a week, and a person can never do that. A human being can never do that. So if you just need knowledge, and that's all you're looking for, well, hey, we have a robot here for you. I mean, we have robots doing surgery already. So they're going to be more precise than a surgeon. So what happens? Now you have two ends of the spectrum. You've got this end of the spectrum. You've got this end of the spectrum. So what happens? What happens when those things come about? The Rise of the Robots. A really good book, Martin Ford. It just makes you think. I mean, I think one of the coolest things is just the thinking aspect of it. It's really getting someone to think about, wow, like this is crazy. It gets you those creative juices going, I think. And it's not going to be me that's going to solve these problems. It's going to be hopefully one of you, or somebody is going to see something that's going to spark something in them, and some genius idea is going to come out of them. So that's what's cool, and I think that's what the whole point of this is. And this is where I wanted, like I said, I wanted to get a lot more pointed and a lot deeper into our insiders'